Welcome back, advocates. It's great to have you joining me on a Thursday afternoon. I do a lot of prep for these for these episodes, and especially when I've got a guest as esteemed as my guest today, Greg Anderson, who is a phenomenal trial attorney, and you saw that when you were watching him fight for the Kowalski family. I have pages and pages of notes and questions and all sorts of things to talk about. And I will be honest with you, I could just throw this out because there's been a new twist that was added today, and I just really want to cut to the chase and talk about it. Let me first just give you a little bit of homework, a little bit of inside work. Number one, I've got moderators today. I've got 3 moderators. Please be kind to them. They're all experienced, but this will be our first. So, be kind. And let's keep everything high level. So here are the rules. We're going to leave this community not as beautiful, but more beautiful than it was left for us. We want to keep our language clean. There will be nothing but healthy and positive and impactful comments. Assume positive intent. Nobody's here to gang up on you. We are here to help one another. We can disagree without being disagreeable. So to that end, ideas should be debated, but zero tolerance for bullying, personal attacks, and certainly for any slurs or foul language. Violators will be banned, period. So there's the rules. Disclaimer: keep in mind that today's channel is not to provide either medical or legal advice and is intended to share opinions and insights for educational and entertainment purposes only. Content should not be considered a substitute for professional medical or legal advice, nor should it take the place of a consultation with a legal counsel or healthcare professionals. Before I get to Greg, don't forget, I need you to hit the like button. If you like it, then please consider subscribing. I think we're up to over 9,500 subscribers now. Ring the bell if you want to be notified. And then, of course, share it. Tell a friend. Bring them into the community. That said, I'm going to leave everything else until the end. At the end of the show, unlike the other night, I will be doing a Q&A with the audience. So I'll be leaving everything until then. And I will get to as many questions as I can, but I don't want to delay any longer. I have a feeling that our guest is going to be coming in hot, and you'll understand why when we start having the conversation. But at this point, it gives me great pleasure to bring in Mr. Greg Anderson, truly the finest lawyer, litigator that I've gotten to work with in my career, and just a really skilled guy. Greg, your prowess, not only your prowess at law, but your trial experience and your caring compassion about the Kowalski family was on full display. You have earned every ounce of respect that I have, my friend.
Well, Joe, I appreciate the introduction, but I would point out to all of the viewers that you've only actually worked with one trial lawyer. So,
but you were the best. Hands down.
Highly confident.
Hands down, you were the best, Greg.
Joe's ever worked with, but thank you. Thank you for the introduction. It is a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
So I want to start with one question before we get to the hot topic.
Sure.
You've been the subject of memes. You're famous. You're followed around the world. And I do want to share that this community has made it very clear that your work on behalf of the Kowalski family, the whole trial, the connection with Maya, has been life-changing for many of them. So I want you to understand the impact of what you've done. But your line about they just don't get it, and they still just don't get it, was absolutely spot on, classic, instant classic. Tell me where that came from. Tell me the story, but how did you come up with that?
I get asked a lot about my closings, and people think that I work on them days and days and days ahead of time, which is sort of true in that during the course of the trial, and even for months before as the case is going on, I'll start a folder, and it is called closing argument. And as things come up that I find interesting or have motivated me, it could be quotes from a book, It could be things people have said. It could be a quote from a motion. I'll put them in that file, and then as we get to the end of the case, I'll try to put them all together, and I try to write out beautiful closings that flow and have a point and have a beginning and end, and I'll get it all set up, and I'll walk out to the podium, and I completely won't follow anything. I will then just kind of wing it from there about what I'm thinking and doing. And a lot of that has to do with reading the jury. And that's probably the biggest thing you could do as a trial attorney is read your jury and understand them as human beings and figure out where they're coming from. And if I was sitting in their seats, what would I be thinking? And that just came to me as I was walking up, literally. They just don't get it, do they?
Yeah.
Because I started out, if you recall, saying, you know, how I tossed and turned the night before, trying to come up with the right argument, even though I'd written it all out and I'd been preparing the damn thing for 6 months. But I still couldn't get to sleep. And then I realized that they'd been in the same courtroom as me. And so they'd heard the same evidence, and I know how I felt. And then it just came to me that even after all of that evidence, the fact that they were still on the attack, they just don't get it.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's for the jurors that were for me, I'm betting that's what they're thinking. And that's where it came from.
Well, and I think that your bet was well placed because it clearly resonated. You know, you really distilled it down to that single sentence, and of course, then your partner, you know, really slammed the emotional message home when he talked about the movie. But that was brilliant. And okay, so sticking with the theme of they just don't get it, let's talk about what happened this morning, Greg.
Well, they still don't get it.
Discuss what you can. Discuss what you can.
Still just freaking don't get it. You know, I don't know what's wrong with these people, to tell you the truth. So they filed a motion, as your viewers may or may not know at this point. I think you're probably the first. But they filed a motion this morning, and it's called Second Supplement to Defendant's Motion for New Trial based on juror misconduct or juror interview, motion to open discovery into evidence from juror misconduct, and emergency motion to preserve evidence, in which they accuse juror. Sorry, I'm reading it literally myself as we've been getting ready for this. They accuse juror 1 of being a Nazi. And I'm embarrassed.
Excuse me?
Of being a Nazi, a member of the National Socialist Party. And more to the point, the SS. Yeah, I know. And I can start quoting it from here. And so here's where it came from. And there's attachments to it. So I'm sure this is going to become unbelievable news throughout the blogosphere and every place else. But so the SS emblem, which is 2 lightning bolts.
Yeah.
The contention is that because this poor man, when he writes an S, he flattens the top and bottom of them, like a lot of people do. That this is a secret sign to all the other Nazis out there that he's with them, and like somehow he's supporting them, and that and having read only parts of it, so I don't want to go too deep into it.
Yeah.
Other than to say somehow this disqualifies him from sitting on the jury. Now, I'm not a proponent of Nazis sitting on juries, but I've been trying to figure it out, and I think I figured out what they're doing. And I don't want to jump ahead in your analysis of it. But anyway, that's what they're accusing this poor man of right now. And just despicable. Who does this?
Can you at least tell me that they've gotten more to support that allegation than his penmanship?
This is what they wrote.
Nope. Let me write. Okay, so
This is what they wrote.
This is what they wrote. Sorry, I got to read this off of here. So An excerpt from the website of the Simon Wiesenthal Center documenting the appearance of the uniform badge of Nazi German Schützenstaffel, or SS, is attached as Exhibit B. It will be noted that in Exhibit A, juror number 1 has printed the letter S throughout the note, normally with a curve in the spine, and this is in capitals, except that he printed his, in quotes, S with sharp angles when printing Dr. Sally Smith's name. Both the second and third times that juror number 1 prints Dr. Sally Smith's name, the letter S is shaped in a manner identical to the symbol of the Nazi Schutzstaffel, exhibiting Exhibit B. Printing the first letter of Dr. Smith's first and last name in such a manner makes clear juror number 1's bias and prejudice against Dr. Smith, and thus defendant, equating Dr. Smith with a notorious Nazi organization. In addition, juror number 1 on October 10th, 2023, printed Exhibit C, which he effectively prejudged the relationship between defendant and Dr. Smith, equating one with the other. That's it. And then they go into an extended discussion of how, I take that back, it's not really that extended. They just say that the fact that he uses this form of S is a clear reference to the Nazi Party.
Okay, so this is speechless, Joe, right? You've known me since the spring, and you know that being a good Irish American, I'm not speechless often. Today's the day. Today's the day, Greg. What the actual hell?
Yeah, this is Greg being speechless, and I'm never speechless. Anybody that knows me knows Greg never speechless. So, I'm trying to analyze this for you and your viewers as it's going through my mind and working through their attack. So, number one, I think a takeaway is, and one of the things that I hope we can get through to juror number 1 is that all of these things are designed to provoke a response from him. They don't have anything on him. The first motion to disqualify was laughable. And I say that having shown that to a number of very seasoned and experienced trial counsel friends of mine and plaintiff and defense, and they're like, "You gotta be kidding me." They filed this. So the first motion was laughable. It's going nowhere. And they proceeded to supplement it. And so this latest one tells me that knowing they have nothing there, they have to make something there.
Oh my goodness.
Does that make sense here? So if they can say the most outlandish thing they possibly can imagine, that's going to provoke juror number 1 into saying something or doing something that's in denial of this, and to defend himself, that's going to give them more of a basis to attack him. That's, I think, the number 1 takeaway is with any luck, juror number 1 will react in such a manner that he blows up on TV, he blows up on the internet, and now they can point to that and say, see, we told you, he's crazy. That's number 1. Number 2, connecting it up with Sally Smith, I'm really having a hard time understanding that, because I don't think Sally Smith's Jewish. And I don't really understand why they're connecting this up, other than they're trying to say that in her role, she and whoever her group is are acting like Nazis. Well, I'm not sure that that's even beginning to be appropriate, although even if he felt like that, that's certainly a First Amendment right to feel like that. And I'm sure if you got any of Sally Smith's victims on your show to ask them what they felt like, I'm sure they might agree that they felt that they were being abused in a manner that was just above and beyond. Now, again, I'm not equating anyone with anything. And
Right.
that's happened to me before, Joe, so don't let me get in trouble by equating anything like that. But I'm just saying extreme persecution. I think that a lot of her victims of false allegations would agree with that.
Yeah.
Still,
Beata talked about the communist Poland.
yeah. And so here's one other thing that my brilliant wife just reminded me of.
Yeah.
During the course of the testimony of Beata's still living sister,
Mm-hmm.
she testified to an event where her father, Beata,
Remember.
and her father,
Yep.
was something out of a bad spy movie. The door, burst open, and these government thugs come in and grab her dad and drag him out, and he disappears for a month. I believe the testimony was for a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that had an incredibly, as one would expect, dramatic effect on Beata and her sister. And it was because that her father, and again, I got a side story about this. I got a ton of side stories, as you know. but he was a member of Solidarity.
Right. And let me just reference for those in the audience who didn't watch the trial.
Please.
Beata Kowalski was born in Poland when Poland was a communist country behind the Iron Curtain, before the Berlin Wall came down, before Perestroika, and her father was actually aligned with Lech Walesa and the Solidarity or Solidarność movement that went on to bring democracy to Poland.
And arguably started the whole downfall.
For sure. Absolutely. And for sure. So I just wanted to give that context to the audience.
Yeah. It was incredible. And those of us that lived through it, and I hate to have such a give on you, but we're both old enough to remember going through.
I remember where I was when the wall came down.
That's right. So do I. And it was a miraculous time. And the period after that was miraculous. And we all watched it develop, and it developed from a bunch of shipyard workers in Gdansk, Poland, of the concept of a workers' union necessary in the workers' paradise, and the absurdity of these people in communist Poland having to form their own union for rights, and it was supposed to be the workers' paradise. And then you had this poor family has their father who's brave enough to stand up to a communist dictatorship, literally frog marched out of his own home and disappeared for a while. And
Jesus.
Beata sees this. These are traumas that, and this was testimony that was presented, and juror number 1 heard. I can only imagine that he was affected the way I was, because this was frankly the first time I had heard this testimony was when it came out at trial, believe it or not.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I'm sure it had its effect.
It certainly had an effect on me. I knew that Beata was born in Poland. I knew that she experienced communism as a child. I knew I had heard in the build up to the trial that her dad was involved in the Solidarity movement. I had no idea that he was squirreled away. I'm sure that was not a staying at a Holiday Inn Express.
No.
And what an impact that must have had on her as a young woman. But think about the perfect metaphor, because he stood up to save his children, just like she made decisions to save her child. Right.
Right.
She learned it at home.
Right. And that's why I say, if juror number 1 did compare this type of stripping your child from you with no hearing and no due process, and having the child captured, and then ultimately the mother having to take her own life, and compared that to some of the more brutal dictatorships of the 20th century. Well, I really can't fault him on that at all. I think that trying to accuse him of something like this it's gone well beyond poor taste and into the bounds where I highly question the ethics of it. Highly question it.
So, Greg, when I had Nick on the show 2 nights ago, one of the audience members submitted a question and asked whether it was his opinion, his speculation, because that's all we've got available. Was it his speculation that the initial motion that was basically the motion against juror number 1, it felt so personal and it felt so vitriolic? And the question was that green lighted by Johns Hopkins in St. Petersburg, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore? Was the client, did he think, pure opinion speculation, did he think that anyone in leadership at the hospital, on the hospital board, or up in Baltimore green lighted that motion? And so I'll ask you, because again, I'm not a lawyer. My wife and I love legal TV shows, Lincoln Lawyer, Law and Order, we watch them all. And the first thing, once I got my jaw off of the ground, when you talked about this latest motion, my first question is, did the managing partners at Hill Ward Henderson greenlight this? Because in my mind, this opens up allegations against the firm for, making some pretty ugly arguments with nothing more than penmanship to point to.
Well, let's break this down a little bit. First, the partners there, Ethan Shapiro, and I think David Hughes is a partner now, and certainly Howard Hunter, have fiduciary duties to their partners. They're all in it together. Most firms that size have an ethics committee. And if you're going to do something that's even slightly borderline in any respect, you run it by the ethics committee.
And by background, you've been with big firms. You were with Foley Lardner, weren't you?
Lardner, yeah. 600 lawyers, 600 lawyer before that, 60 lawyer firm before that, and 20 lawyer firm before that.
So you know how big firms work.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I've experienced all of these. Fortunately, not the ethics part, but certainly all the bureaucratic goings on for these. So, if they were following the bureaucratic template, they would have had to have run some of these allegations by their ethics committee. If the ethics committee okays it, and again, I'm not saying that they followed the template. They may have just been, loose cannons on deck that we're going to file things and do things without any of their partners' knowledge. And to a certain extent, because there's some fine attorneys at Hill Ward and Henderson.
There are.
That I pray that they are loose cannons on this. But if they followed the predicate of what you're supposed to do, then that meant the firm passed judgment on it. So that's one line of question and reasoning that you go down to. Was the firm involved? If they followed their own internal procedures, and yes, one of their major committees would have had to pass on that. And that leads you to wherever you want to go on it. The second then turns on our ethical duties to our clients. And so then if you're going to take a step as an insurance defense lawyer or any kind of defense lawyer, product liability, and many of your viewers know or don't know, I do primarily defense work. I mean, I'm not all plaintiff by any stretch of the imagination. I represent insurance companies, product manufacturers, and I was Steve Hease's lawyer for a while at Chris Craft.
That's right.
So it's different in representing a corporation than it is from an individual. And if you're representing a corporation a large one, if you're going to take a step that could expose your client to ridicule, you have got to run it by your client. You got to call up that senior claims adjuster or senior VP of risk management, or in some cases, your CFOs or COOs, and say, hey, look, I've got an argument. I want to make it. It's a little risky, but this is why I want to do it. And what do you think? And sometimes they'll just give you the go ahead. Other times they'll say, well, I got a committee that. And other times they'll say flat out, no, we're not going to go that far. In this case, if they follow protocol, they would have run it by someone at Johns Hopkins. So then we go from there to the relationship between Johns Hopkins and Johns Hopkins Hospital Systems, which was the parent company, right? An interesting fact is that many, if not all, of the employees involved here were actually employees of the higher up company.
Right.
And so they're sort of, and you know more about this than I ever will, about the loaned employee, or how they set that up, where one employs all the employees and the other ones actually they're doing stuff for. But in this instance, if Johns Hopkins was following protocol with this much money on the line, they would have had to have reported to MCIC Vermont and their senior claims people, and they either directly or up through Baltimore, and they would have reported. Now it gets even more bizarre from there. But
this MCI Vermont, that's their insurer.
That's yes. It's,
okay.
It's
their fund.
It's like an insurer. Yes.
Right. Right.
So, did they follow protocol? Are they loose cannons? I can't answer that question right now.
Yeah.
I just know what their duties and responsibilities are to the people of Florida and the Florida bar.
Wow. You know, and certainly, you know, Mr. Hunter is a familiar leader in the Trial Lawyers Association. He was actually the Florida Trial Lawyer of the Year in 2018. So I mean, he's not. I would imagine he's well familiar with those responsibilities.
Oh yeah, and he was, if my memory serves, I think at some point he served on the Judicial Nominations Board, which is about as powerful.
Oh, no kidding.
Because those are the people that decide who's going to be a judge and who's not.
Yeah. And who's going to make it to the Supreme?
I don't know that. I don't know that for sure. I have not dug deep enough to figure that out, but that was the rumor.
Wow. So how do you respond to something like this, Greg? And I know you just got it. I don't expect that you have have really thought it out, because, I assumed that you were kind of coming in hot, because I know this is literally a brand new motion. But I mean, when there is something this
stupid,
despicable, I was going to say despicable, and this far out of left field. I mean, to accuse someone of accuse someone of something as horrible, and with nothing more than a penmanship test, that seems like awfully thin ice to go out on. And how do you respond to that?
Well, there's a variety. First thing is, our written motion in response will condemn it and point out how completely and utterly inappropriate it is, and that the Florida Bar Rule of Professional Conduct states that we shall not, that's a shall not, impugn the integrity of the judicial system, including the jury system, jurors, and judges. So a shall not is, if you do it, you're taking your chances of losing your license or getting it suspended. And so we will point out the egregiousness of this in our response. One of our appellate lawyers is immediate past president of the Florida Bar, and another one of our appellate lawyers is a past Supreme Court justice, Florida Supreme Court. So we've got plenty of firepower there to look it over and see how what they think about it. Which brings us to, what do we do as attorneys? The juror number one had every right to express himself. He only had the duty and responsibility as a sworn juror to refrain from reading outside material or talking to people outside or to discuss the case amongst themselves. So he wasn't able to go on the internet. He wasn't able to do any research. He wasn't able to even talk to his own jurors. He wasn't able to talk to anybody else, a point that they tried to make by connecting with his wife somehow. So,
Who, by their allegation, was incapable of independent thought.
right.
Just like
Right,
like Jennifer and just like my bride, right?
Yeah, I was sleeping in the same house. They had that sin going on, sleeping in the same house.
Yeah,
as a married
yeah.
couple. Yeah,
Patty's
so-
actually telling me what to say right now, right? So yeah.
exactly. It's all in there.
That's what this is for. Yeah.
He said it's not a mind meld. Yeah. So you've got that situation where he brings all of his own internal thought processes and life experiences, and in fact, our jury instructors tell you you're supposed to bring your life experiences in there to make a decision. And so you can come in, and if you feel like that just sounds like something, that's just terrible. That sounds like something, if you were in a totalitarian system would happen. You're allowed to do that. You can analogize the systems like that, because unfortunately that happens, and it happened with evidence in this case.
Yeah.
So we will respond. We'll point out that he has freedom of speech as a First Amendment right. After he's released, he has a right to say or do whatever he wants within the bounds, obviously of the law, criminal law and all that. But he can say and do what he wants. And the judge so instructed him at the end of the trial.
You don't have to speak to anybody, but you can speak to anybody.
And if he wants to write, personally, looking at the writing, I don't know what the heck these people are talking about. I think it's a significant stretch, because I've seen a lot of his questions throughout the course of this. And I didn't see anything different in this one than I did in 20 other questions the guy wrote. So picking one out and saying, I don't like the way he draws his S's. He clearly didn't like Sally Smith. I don't like Sally Smith. And I don't think anybody in the jury likes Sally Smith. I don't think anybody in the courtroom likes Sally Smith. And I know for sure that none of the parents that ever dealt with her like Sally Smith. Yeah. So I'm not going to get down on juror number one for expressing his opinions, no matter what it is. But I think it's highly inappropriate to draw that comparison. That's what
I think what you should do, Greg, is you should proffer the nun that taught him penmanship in first grade.
Get his knuckles slapped by the ruler or something.
I've got the scars. Look, man, 12 years of Catholic education. Yeah,
that's it. The Catholic education did it to me. I mean, it just coaches the theater of the absurd, doesn't it?
Oh my God.
The places this case has taken us is just overwhelming, and you saw it, Joe, in some of the testimony and questions leveled at you, and it just gets weirder and weirder, doesn't it? What
you mean, being asked about a deposition that was never taken? That question?
Yeah, can't you remember that one? Well, no, because
what I meant to ask was
that was a beautiful moment. And you handled it so elegantly. You really did. That was the key. Thanks. They had no idea what to do with you. See, because inexperienced expert witnesses, we as experienced trial lawyers look at you guys as fresh meat. And we're going to come in and tear you apart on the cross because you're not used to the way we spring traps and everything. Yeah. I'd like to think I had a little to do with prepping you for that stuff, but you were eloquent and relaxed, and they just couldn't figure out a way to get at you. Yeah. I thought that was a wonderful thing.
Thanks.
Right in that job, if you ever want
it. You know what? These circumstances were so special, and honestly, the commitment that all of Team Anderson, Team Maya took. I mean, the sacrifice that you and Jen and your family and Nick's family and Samantha's family and speaking of Samantha's family, did Was there really an inference that her mom was a mole for you guys?
I mean,
While we're talking about, famous hits, right?
oh yeah. I never figured that one out, but I refuse to be led down the rabbit trail on a lot of them. I think that Samantha, some relative of Samantha's had worked at Johns Hopkins at some point in some capacity, but I never figured out the when, where, how, or why. And Samantha never said word one. Yeah. So I am dealing completely and utterly then again with rumor, and half of it's probably rumor. Most of it's probably rumor from the other side. In the middle of these trials, things get circulated around that are just ridiculous. And
and again, it kind of goes back to the theme that we touched on when we started this, Greg. They just don't get it. I mean, once again, it just feels like they're misreading the room.
That's really true. That's a great way to put it, Joe. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. I can't tell you how many nights I've spent staring at the ceiling, both before, during, and after the trial, thinking they just don't get it. But one of the traits of being a trial lawyer is you have to be situationally aware, kind of like a pilot.
Yeah.
You have to be able to read the courtroom. And in reading the courtroom, that doesn't just mean focusing on one juror or how your co-counsel's doing. You get a feel for the zeitgeist of the room.
Mm-hmm. You
get a feel for how it's everything from a slight scowl that the bailiffs, who uniformly are just, stone-faced through the
stoic
thing.
Yeah.
And if you see that, if a witness is saying something, you get that kind of slight scowl that even they can't control. That gives you a hint, right?
Yeah.
If you get, it's everything. If there's a particularly poignant part of your case, and you glance over at the judge, and you can see that the judge's lower lip is quivering just a slight bit. If you can, during the course of your examination, out of the corner of your eye, watch the jurors. It's all about the body language of the jurors, and see who's sitting up and who's sitting back and who's staring at their feet. You take all these things into your collective consciousness of what's going on, and it should spit out, I either got this room or I don't have this room.
Yeah.
Or maybe I've got part of this room but not the other part of the room. And from there, you tailor your case. Now, if you don't have that, then you're just mechanically, robotically putting evidence in, and you're not even really thinking through what they want to hear and what needs to be proven. You're saying, okay, well, this cause of action needs this. Well, what if they don't care about that anymore? Maybe they care all about this other element that you haven't paid any attention to. So I thought the biggest problem for the other side, as you have aptly pointed out, a long way back to what you're saying, is I don't think that they could read that room. I think that room was giving them signs. I'm talking too much again, but after, like I said, you don't have to worry about asking questions of me.
Hey, Greg, the dinner that I got to enjoy with you a couple of weeks ago was we were not short for conversation between the two of us. That's for sure.
No, we were not. You almost got 4 words in. I was very impressed with that. But no, we
I just have to share something. My wife just sent me a text message, Greg. She says, "Can we all storm the courtroom on the 15th wearing T-shirts that say they just don't get it? And Greg should wear one too."
Have you seen some of those T-shirts? Oh my God. They come up with all these different names for Johns Hopkins. It was John Shopkins.
John Shopkins Drop Kids. Yeah. I'll tell you what,
Drop Kids, Prisoners Hospital.
I don't know where Megan Fox got her audience, but my God, they are snarky.
Fabulous.
Oh my goodness,
Oh,
yeah,
they're fabulous.
yeah. They're the ones that gave me the nickname Dr. Goodhair, by the way.
Well, you are.
And well, thank
Live
you.
with that.
Hey,
Sport.
everybody's got to have something, sir, right? You know, but the meme.
I was really jealous of the hair comment too. I really
But the meme that they made up of you when you were asking, I can't remember the witness's name. She was wearing, I think she was wearing a pink shirt, and she was like an investigator. All right, she was former law enforcement.
Yeah, people, right?
Yeah. And you said, do you remember when you took that oath to tell the truth? And your glasses were down, and you looked over your glasses. Well, do you? And then they blew you up with the laser beam eyeballs and oh my God, Megan Fox's audience is the undecided or uncontested champion of memes for this trial, hands down. Well done, Megan Fox.
It really was.
And I encourage everybody to go over and subscribe to Megan's channel. She's hilarious. Oh my God.
Hilarious.
Yeah, somebody put into my comments in preparation, because I invited the audience, the advocates, to ask questions in advance, right? And somebody actually put in, "I love Greg Anderson's laugh," and they were referencing your last interview with Megan.
Yeah. Well, that's what that second glass of Chardonnay will do for you.
Well done, sir. Well done.
To interviews with thousands of people watching, but
yeah,
it was a lot of fun, and she got a lot of war stories out of me, as you undoubtedly will.
So let me go back to reading the room. I think that in the plaintiff's response to the motion about juror 1, they were the affidavits from Connie and Gabby, I think, had the second one about Mr. Shapiro's exit from the courtroom.
Oh my God.
But
Silly.
Again, if I'm not mistaken, every single of the 44 or more questions that the jury was asked to address, all of them were in favor of the plaintiff's case and the Kowalski family. If I'm not mistaken, it was 44-0. I may have missed one, but I think it was 44-0. That is, as I said the other night, a shellacking, right? But based on Mr. Shapiro's exit of the room, as documented in those 2 letters, clearly the defense was surprised by the verdict. So they must have been getting some kind of feedback. And I know the feedback that they were getting from Reddit, right? Which, let's not go down that rabbit hole. I know the feedback that they were getting from Reddit.
Well, just Lord bless them.
Yeah, bless their hearts, right? That's a good Southern blessing. But seriously, I mean, what input could they possibly have been getting that made them think that they were prevailing here?
Right.
This brings up another interesting comment, and don't let me forget to tell you about what the jury was expecting that first week of their case. There's a phrase, "believe your own BS," and one of the things that you learn as a trial lawyer is to never buy in to your own BS about the case. And what I do, and I encourage Nick and all of my other Padawans to do in these circumstances, is try to imagine who you were before you were a juror. A lawyer. Try to imagine what it was like, say, when you're in college, or when you're in law school and had absolutely no money, and we're just trying to get by, and like I did, waiting tables and bartending and parking cars and anything else you can do. Try to imagine what it was like when you were a normal person, and step back and look at the case from that perspective, and stop looking at the law, and stop looking at your belief systems, and start looking at the way normal people see the essence of the case.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you can read a jury and you can read the room. If you're going to stay in especially big firm lawyer mode, full of arrogance, full of confidence in your own righteousness, and believing everything that your client and the witnesses tell you, you're going to get a shellacking. You're going to get your butt kicked many, many times. Sometimes you may pull off a win, but if there's another trial lawyer in the room and she's got the talent, the ability to strip away all of that and look at it as a real person, then you're going to get your rear end kicked.
Yeah.
And in this instance, I am a firm believer that, well, okay, so we all know about Howard and his involvement in the case before this became a lawsuit, right? In the underlying action. And that had a profound effect.
What do you mean?
Well, Howard was involved in the underlying shelter action before Judge Hayworth, and Howard basically took over the courtroom the last 3 or 4 hearings. Howard directed this whole thing. At the end, when a lot of the bad stuff happened, Howard was the one that made the argument, even after Beata died, that Maya should get shipped up to Cincinnati to an inpatient psych ward, or should be put in a, and I might have gotten these backwards, but one was go up to Cincinnati, I think, and go inpatient in a psych ward. Another one was to go someplace else and be outpatient with special foster parents for psychiatric kids and go to an outpatient psych unit.
Wow.
And Howard made that argument. Howard made the argument.
Howard Hunter.
Howard Hunter made the argument that Maya should never have ketamine again in her life, and there needed to be an order about that. Howard, and here is the bizarre thing about this. Howard was representing Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, right?
Yeah.
The only 2 parties to the shelter action were the Kowalskis and DCF, the state. Only 2 parties.
Yeah.
Only 2 parties needed to be represented. The hospital was what is definitionally known under Chapter 39 as the shelter facility.
Okay.
And that means that's basically where you house the kid, right? So the shelter facility gets asked, do you have the facilities to do this? The shelter facility provides information upon request by the court or in the proceedings. The shelter facility is not a party, does not have any power, and is not supposed to be commenting or involved in any way in any of this. And yet Howard ran the show on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Judge Hayworth deferred to him on a lot of things. Now, why is that relevant, Greg? Well, it's relevant because we always questioned whether Howard could have an independent view of the case to analyze it and determine whether there was liability, because it's hard if you're the one that came up with it,
right,
to judge yourself. And one of the things that you do as trial counsel in many instances, if you're doing your job, is you may have to come in, and I've had to come in to that product planning committee or to that group of naval architects or to that car designer and say, hey, look, what do you got here to defend this? Because this really did not work very well, and I got to defend it. So you need to tell me if you've got a reason why you designed this thing this way. And with hospitals, doc, why did you do that this way?
Yeah.
Because I'm the one that's going to walk in and have to come up with a reason why you did it. So please tell me.
Yeah.
If you're the one that designed it, it's awfully hard to set yourself aside from that and take a completely independent, step back, look at it realistically view of this thing. And I think that infected their entire view of the trial.
Yeah.
And I also think that, well, I'll leave it like that. I'll just say that.
So, do you feel, pure speculation on your part, and I'm asking you to speculate, which is not allowed in a court of law, but it is in this room. Was that a factor, that his involvement in Maya's actual care? Was that a factor in why this went to trial and didn't just settle out?
100%. Absolutely. There was nobody, and there has been no one in that entire structure who has come in with a completely independent view of this and taken a step back and reviewed all the facts and reviewed the circumstances and asked the really hard questions.
Mm. Mm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
That's how you get in situations like this. Every time you see a nuclear verdict, something like this is going on.
Yeah. And just again, to kind of give context for the audience, you are, by any definition, a very experienced trial attorney, right? If I'm not mistaken, when you and I talked about it, you've done well over 100 cases that actually went to trial, correct?
Well, I've had over 300 trials. I've had, and a lot of lawyers, again, there's always a story be with me, but I have, this one was the 137th first chair major jury trial in a court of general jurisdiction. Which
137.
Means, yeah, and that means that's a United States district court, or some states have district courts as the state trial court. Some have circuit courts as the state trial court. Some call them superior courts. Those are courts of general jurisdiction, which are the most powerful trial courts, right? And so this was 137. And one thing I've tried to do, which I got sick a long time ago of listening to lawyers tell me how many jury trials they had. So I tried to go back and reconstruct as many of them as I can remember in 39 and a half years of practice. And I think I was up to like 76 or 80 of them. And I gave up, but I should go back and do that. But I put them on my website. And the reason I wanted to do that was that so many people out there, lawyers out there, claim to have that kind of experience, and they just don't, because when you do the math, you would have had to have tried like 10 of these a year. And
yeah. And this was, I suspect that $261 million is the biggest judgment that you have earned, won, but you've had other big verdicts. I think $71 million against, a little company called General Electric and a this startup called Sikorsky Helicopters, right? I mean, that was $70+ million, right? So you had big verdicts before.
Yeah, I've had a few. I mean,
yeah,
you rarely get them this big. That one was 71. I've had a 28. There's lawyers out there that have had multiple verdicts in this, over $20 million range, but most of them are in a set area of the country, in a set area of practice. Like there's a ton of Texas trial lawyers in the down in Rio Grande Valley that have just, I don't know how many of these multi-million-dollar verdicts in car accident and trucking cases, but they tend to be sort of, and there's asbestos lawyers too.
Yeah.
That have a ton of these size verdicts. They're doing the same,
but again, it's
trial every time.
It's the guys that advertise for mesothelioma, right? I get that. So while we're on the topic of your GE and Sikorsky, I've actually had I believe the advocate's name is Yaya Trucker, and he wants to know, where can we find Iron 44, the book that you wrote.
Right. Oh my God. All right. So I have a limited number of the unabridged version.
Okay.
and it's 900 pages. Do we have a copy of it up there?
We do.
Jen, I can
You
show
know
it.
what? You know what? I will tell you, Greg. I think that you just need to put it up on Amazon as self-published and let people download it as a Kindle. Right?
Well, it's
so
in
we'll
the-
talk about that offline. But
in the
yeah,
process.
trucker, we will find a way to get that book to you.
It's coming out very quickly. There's a long story behind it.
Yeah, good.
But it is written. It's sitting. I'm looking at it right now, and I do have a limited number of copies, but I will try to make it available as quick as I can.
You're awesome. You're awesome. I'll tell you what. What was the old saying? America wants to know, right? So
Right.
I will tell you that this audience of advocates wants to know. Advocates that I call my audience the advocates because
Yeah,
Greg, we are here to make things better. We are here to fight
So important.
for those who don't have a voice, for those who need our help. So just to give you context, we're coming up on the hour, and I know that I can't keep you forever. I appreciate your generosity, but let me get to some questions that have come to me from the viewers among the advocates. Do you think we'll ever get all the documents? Because it's, well, first of all, do you feel that we've got all the documents relevant to the IJ?
No, we had a big fight just yesterday on that, and we're bringing it up at the hearing on the 15th. So
Is this the black and blue box?
Yeah,
The bruise box?
yeah, you know it well. So, it went back with them after the trial, right? And we didn't know that. They brought it in. I guess we were looking at it. We got caught up in the other stuff. We never got a chance, and they never made copies of it. And so at the end of the trial, they just took the boxes out. And then we said, hey, wait a second, you never made copies of them. You brought them into the courtroom, but we got through like a tenth of them. Where's the stuff?
Yeah.
We just got an email back that said, why do you need it now? Well, because the judge ordered it, number one. That's a clue. And by the way, you filed a motion for new trial.
Yeah.
And you're questioning about everything about the trial. Why don't you give us the documents that the court? I don't think I've seen an angrier court.
I will. I've asked attorney friends of mine if they've ever seen a judge take not one but 2 5-minute timeouts, right? And God bless Judge Carroll. His judicial temperament that he displayed during this trial was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done that. My head would have exploded 6 times.
Especially at that end right there. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But there was a moment where, so my kids will frequently agree to do what I tell them to do, but then they do what they want to do anyway. And their response typically is, "Oh, daddy got played." Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I think that there was a point, especially around the IJ issue, where, I saw that look on Judge Carroll's face, and I don't know if he's a dad, but man, it's the same face I had when they say daddy got played.
Yep. He knew what the story was. And he dealt with this kind of stuff through the whole trial. I mean, this is a trial where if your advocates, if the viewers knew even a tenth of the stuff that went on through this trial, I don't know, there'd be rioting on the streets. It took us, those texts that the ketamine girl text.
Sure. She can't keep up the charade 24/7 because she's only 10 and doesn't understand the physiologic mistakes she's making.
Right.
Yeah.
To get those texts.
Yeah.
It took us 15 hearings, 35 motions, 15 hearings, 35 motions. I'm not sure how to describe this, but we started out trying to get, I think, 14 or 15 cell phones from the key people involved here. And something like, and I can get you the statistic, we can talk about 13 of them disappeared and 10 of them drowned. How does that happen? That 10 of them. I said, what are you talking about? They drowned.
There was acid.
They got dragged. One got acid. Yeah, one got dipped in acid. 10 of them got thrown in a pool or the ocean. And
I'm just shocked that many people knew Hillary Clinton.
I was amazed. I mean, you can't make this stuff
They
up.
got bleach bitted.
You can't make
Bit
this
bleach.
stuff up. Yeah, there's orders on it. I'll send you an order on it. You can have a whole show on that.
Oh
So
my God.
just to get that tiny bit
Yeah.
of evidence, it took us 6 months, and I don't know, man, how many hours Anderson Glenn spent on that. Hundreds of hours, thousands and thousands of dollars of cost
Yeah.
to get that bit. But that's what it takes to win a jury trial.
So does their reluctance to share these records, especially around the IJ, do you believe that that's related to the fact that, and I'm sure your firm is fielding all sorts of, requests from other families who have been through similar experiences. If you've got it for Kowalski, can you use it for Kushner, right? Can you use it for whoever else has been subjected to this medical kidnapping?
That's how the asbestos lawyers have made zillions of dollars. They are still using the same, and the tobacco lawyers are making
Really?
millions of dollars off the same 20 documents that somebody finally got one of the manufacturers to produce.
No kidding.
And once those hit, and they come in every single trial.
Well, there you go.
Same documents. So
Wow.
yes, you can use them absent some extraordinary order by a court that limits them, and that usually has to do with an attorney-client or some other basis that way. So yeah,
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
we can use them. It's just
Wow. So you talked about just getting the text messages and how extraordinarily difficult that proved to be. And the other night, Nick talked about making 100 to 150 trips from Jacksonville to Sarasota County, St. Petersburg, over the course of his four years of involvement. And you've been involved for over 5, correct?
the docket shows that our first thing that we
Spring
did.
of 2017.
Yeah, in the right after Maya got out, it was within 2 months of Maya getting out, we got involved. So for us, it's been 2017.
And I know it's highly unusual for a case that has not yet been to court to actually go to the appellate court first, but this one did. Am I correct?
Yep.
So, Greg, give the audience some sense of how many twists, turns, roadblocks. God bless him. Howard Hunter did a lot of things that I'm not a fan of, but I loved his phrase that this has more landmines than the beaches of Normandy, right?
Yeah, except he laid them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's the wit. There's the wit that was in the plaintiff's response to the juror one motion.
Yeah.
You're the champion, man.
So this is something I am extremely upset about, and I don't know quite how to handle. And I don't know how. We were set to go to jury trial on Tuesday, the 6th of April of 2022. On the Thursday before that, so 4 or 5 days before, we got a series of 3 orders out of the appellate court. The first one telling us we could go to trial, which we all expected because there was no basis for the stuff they filed. The second one was about 11:30 in the morning, and it said, well, hang on, there's further orders to come. And I thought, oh, good, they're going to award fees for us. And I thought, I wouldn't worry at all. And the third one came in, and it said, in very convoluted language, the first order is withdrawn. the trial court's order denying stay is reversed. The stay is enacted, and so it will not essentially go to trial. And so you got to consider the amount of time and money it takes to
Sure.
get one of these things ready to go, right? Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And down to renting houses and things.
Yeah.
Like the infamous war house we had this time. So we had so much in it, Joe. We talked to our clients. We said, look, this is all about attacking the punitive damage allegation. We've got a strong case on liability. Maybe just give up the punitives. So we did. We filed a response that said, if we can go to trial, we waive punitive damages. And why that is so significant is that the entire petition, the entire appeal, the whole reason that it was being stayed was because of the way we had pled the punitive damage part. So follow me here. The one reason why the case was stayed was about how do you plead punitive damages? We went in and said, we'll waive them. We won't go after them. Now, can we go to trial? Nope. And we tried to take it up to the Florida Supreme Court on a petition. Weren't able to do it, and the case got stayed. And we got to wait a year and a half to try the case.
In a documentary that had me in tears in multiple phases of the movie Take Care of Maya, I think that watching Kyle break down about we're never going to be heard, this is never going to end, was one of the most heartbreaking things in a documentary that had dozens of heartbreaking things. Yeah. So let me get back to a couple of audience questions here, because it's they are so engaged in this and have been from day one. And again, so many people have identified with Maya, with the Kowalski family, with her not being heard medically, and so I think I'm eager to get their questions in. So a lot of questions about sanctions, and Bravo Chick is asking, will there be a filing requesting more sanctions for the audacity of this motion, the latest motion?
What was the caller's name? It was from
Bravo Chick.
Bravo Chick. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you have predicted well. We are going to have at least one and two more motions for sanctions. We're still trying to get those immediate jeopardy documents, and now we have other bases, obviously, that we're going to go after and ask for attorney fees, costs, and other remedies.
Crazy Cat Queen is asking, can juror number one bring a suit for defamation, especially since the trial has been all over the world?
Crazy Cat Queen, no. You can't bring, there's a thing called the litigation privilege, and it's a bar to defamation suits in anything that has anything remotely to do with litigation. So you can call each other any names you want, as long as you can claim it has something to do with the litigation, then you're barred from bringing a claim.
Even if it's based on evidence as thin as penmanship?
As long as it's in any way related. Yeah, I know it's unfair. Look, I'm 100% there with you. The law needs to change, but if it has anything to do with the litigation, you basically can say or do anything. Now, there's some exceptions, and maybe this poor juror's case can fall into one. But basically, what the court says that in these circumstances, the remedy lies with the trial judge. The trial judge should, or the bar. So, juror number one can file a bar grievance.
Yeah.
He has every right to do that. And we can file motions before the court.
So there are several others, Bug Duggar, Mary Christensen, and others who are asking about, so to answer their questions, they're asking about what can juror one do to fight back? And the answer really is not much. And it's a long shot to gain anything from that. Is that what I'm hearing?
The power of the public pulpit is his greatest ally. And once we get past a certain point in this case, and he should be able to do it now, and it's so unbelievably cruel and wrong that he is limiting himself and is actually helping his fellow jurors and the judicial system and the verdict, and through that us, by not speaking out more, is a testament to this man. And I've never spoken to him. I've never met him, other than obviously standing, a yard away from him there.
And to my understanding, the defense team never asked him a single question during the jury selection process. Voir dire.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tactic on my part too, but yeah.
So is it safe to assume, again, law and order is my law school, right? Is it safe to assume that they felt that a case that was so connected with DCF and that kind of a formalized prosecutorial process, that it was to their advantage to have a law enforcement officer retired? Be one of the six?
It's safe to assume that they were preoccupied with the fact that they found out that the slappy defense was in effect, and women are
What's the slappy defense?
You cannot strike a potential juror if they're part of a suspect class. And for the longest time, it was black people. But it has been slappy, and there's 3 other cases. Not a lot of lawyers call it slappy defense. I call it slappy defense. It has been extended now to females. You can't strike a woman from the jury because she's a woman. You have to articulate a non-sexually biased reason. They apparently, that's why I got away with murder and voir dire. And one of the reasons why we had such a great jury, they didn't realize that they couldn't strike women without coming up with a non-discriminatory reason. And when I challenged them on that, on some of the ones that they had come back to backstrike, thinking they could find a way to get on the jury, and couldn't articulate a non-discriminatory reason why they were getting rid of women on the jury, then the judge denied their motions to strike them.
And again, just for context, you're not talking about physically strike. You're talking about removing them from the jury pool.
That's right. That's right. Removing them as jurors. Yeah. You have preemptories, and you have for cause. For cause is they say something that they just could never be on a jury because they hate all plaintiff lawyers, and so that then the lawyers usually agree on those and say, no, that one's got to go. The preempts are the big battle. That's the technique. That's where you are fighting, and it's a gigantic game of chess to plan out 3 and 4 and sometimes 20 jurors down the road to see which ones you're going to end up with. And so you plan your preemptories, but you can also come back and do backstriking, which is come back after passing over somebody you could have stricken before and you decide not to, and then you go on a few more and you can come back to them and then strike them tactically, to clean up who you want on the jury.
How does that go back to juror number one?
Right. How does that go back to juror number one? They got preoccupied, and I asked juror number one question, and that was, I had seen his form. I knew he was a detective, but I also knew about a suicide in his family. And I saw the look on his face when he described what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this sort of, it wasn't really a shrug of shoulders. It was body language that told me what I needed to know about him. And he was a risk. And I said that. I said that in an affidavit, that I thought he was a risk. I thought that he could go the other way.
Yeah.
I did. But I felt as though at that time, everything considered, he was better for me than a couple of the other ones coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not go back and ask more questions. And he was truly juror number one. He was off in the corner. Right? And so I did not come back and ask a single question of him. Once I'd made up my mind that I liked him better than a couple more coming up, I said, okay, let's just leave him over here. And they never came back and asked a single question about him.
Wow. And so would you attribute that to the difference in your real life trial experience and the real life trial inexperience of the hospital's legal team?
I do what I do, and it's not just I'm trying to be false humility or anything. It could have had a bad day. They could have had a bad time. All I know is, in this size case, you're walking into the lion's den. You're in the absolute biggest leagues, and you either know exactly what you're doing, or you're going to get it handed to you. It's that simple.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about this Lawtube world that actually, Greg Anderson, you turned me on to, because after I did I was on the stand 4 times.
That's
and
right.
The first one was for 4 hours, and thanks to Scott at Recovery Addict, I know that there were 82 objections voiced during my 4 hours of being there. 82 objections, which has to be some kind of a record. Yes, I'm proud of it. But they clearly did not want me to open my yap. That's for sure.
I hate to say that.
But so you called me up. I think I testified on a Wednesday, and you called me on Saturday, Friday or Saturday, and you said, "Man, you got some fans out there." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And I had zero clue that this world existed. And here I am starting a channel, and one of the things that I love about it, Greg, is that it's a little bit like Sim City, the old video game. You get to build the city that you want. You get to build the community that you want. And this community is committed to making a difference and to advocating and to, at the beginning, I read a line out of what I refer to as the Athenian Creed, that when the young men who were entering their military training in the ancient city state of Athens, it was the completion of school and beginning of military training that made them citizens. And they took an oath that included the line, paraphrasing from the ancient Greek, "We will leave our city not as beautiful, but more beautiful than it was left to us." Right? And that's what this community of advocates is really committed to. So Serenity 10 and A Sunflower Day. No, I'm sorry. Serenity 10 and Equality both ask very similar questions about, is there anything as advocates that we can do? This isn't right. Can we write letters to anyone, or is there any way that we can help? because this just feels wrong. Listen, the whole juror one motion from start to finish, including today, just feels wrong. What can we advocates do?
You're American citizens and citizens of the state of Florida, so you have a right.
No, only 73% are Americans. I have actually quite a number of these folks are from South Africa and the UK and Australia.
I had forgotten about that. No, okay,
yeah.
The 73%. I don't know that if you're from South Africa, that our local congressman will weigh it, but they might.
Yeah.
So my apologies there. You have a right to write to the Florida bar. You have a right to write to the politician, your state senators, your Congress people, and let them know that this type of situation is wrong. It should have never happened. The law needs to be changed and people brought accountable. The Florida bar always wants to hear about any time that there's a problem with an attorney. I want to follow up though, and I have to say, before this trial, I did not know about all these folks out here. Really, I didn't.
Wow.
And kudos to now you and Rob Lumber and Megan Fox, and I haven't met the gentleman, the lawyer, no, Scott.
Recovery addict.
Yeah, recovery addict, all these folks. And I had dinner with Rob last weekend, and it was a fascinating experience to hear about all these folks out here. And I am just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed at the commitment they've got to the American justice system, because I have some serious concerns about the attacks on the jury system that we see out there, and people have got to be vigilant about it. And I love to hear that the advocates here on your channel want to do something, and write to people and let them know, write to those involved. Right to the bar, right to the Congress people, Attorney General, let people know that you completely and utterly disagree with what happened here. Yeah. And maybe we'll prevent what happened to the Kowalskis happening again, and this kind of what's happened to me and my family, my beautiful wife here, and my poor kids, and everything we went through. And it's not even beginning to imagine what the Kowalskis went through.
Yeah. How are the Kowalskis?
They're okay. The verdict is step one, because now we've got post-trial motions, and that'll get delayed out. And we're doing our best, but that'll get delayed out. And so they know it's a long fight, but it's not like that verdict instantly turns into money for them.
Right.
And they live in the same house where nobody goes in the garage, because you go in the garage and you're reminded of what happened to mom. And they want to get out of that house. Now, there are ethical prohibitions against what we can do to help them, but Anderson Glenn, to the fullest extent that we can ethically, is trying to help them through this time. I think that emotionally it is very difficult on them, because they're going through that post-trial depression that we all go through. In fact, I'm still recovering from this, and so is Jen.
Yeah.
You can't put that kind of time and effort into an event, an experience, and then it comes to a conclusion, however wonderfully, without having a bit of depression set in and a bit of wonderment of what happens next. And that's exactly where the Kowalskis are.
Yeah.
But Maya is a very strong young lady, and so is Kyle in his own way. Jack's an incredible father, and he's trying his best for these kids, but it's an uphill battle. And I am trying to find ways to help them the best that we can. I mean, we're going to try to find, and what the Kowalskis want to do is form a foundation in Beata's name.
Yeah.
To and use some of the money, if they do get any money out of this, to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. And we'll try to maybe get that going early, and maybe people can help them there. I will say that there are 2 books. The good news is we were lucky enough to get James DeFelice, who was the author of American Sniper, and the movie of the same. Yeah.
Yep.
Writing a book, Take Care of Maya. And I think he's going to help me. Mine, which is Defending Maya, which would be well after hers. So we're hoping a couple books will help, and time mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. I know one of the things that I found as a physician and as a dad, I was horrified to learn that leading up to the trial, Maya, Kyle, and even Jack had limitations on them because of the trial to accessing counseling.
Yeah.
Now, I, as a physician, always assumed that I had patient-physician confidentiality, but that was somehow discoverable. And I mean, listen, I sat in the courtroom. I had never met the Kowalskis until I went into the courtroom the week of my testimony. And I saw the young lady that I saw on the cover of People magazine. She's petite, much tinier than I expected her to be. But she's a grown young lady. And I had to remind myself over and over, Greg, that she was 10 years old when she went to the emergency room. She celebrated her 11th birthday in the hospital by herself. Kyle was 8 years old when he found his mom in the garage. And they can't go to counseling for it because it might show up in testimony. There's something wrong there, sir.
It was the most horrible. In a case with a lot of horrors, that motion and and what ended up happening there, where they had to write to the defense counsel, or tell us to write to the defense counsel within 5 days after they saw any kind of health care. You want to go get your teeth cleaned? Anything. They had to report. We had to report to the defense counsel, who would then immediately go out and file a bunch of requests, for production and subpoena Dukas Teekum, the poor damn dentist, who's going, what the heck is this? I cleaned this kid's teeth and now I'm drawn into this lawsuit. That was absolutely horrifying. And then there was the whole debacle with poor Jackie Henschke, who's a brilliant psychiatrist. And we had, I met her through Jen, actually, at a kids function for our kids, and her kids were there. And just through, parent talk, watching the kids play around in the pool, that she was a pediatric psychiatrist. And so we thought, okay, we found somebody to help here. And we argued like crazy for a safe harbor for this family.
And they fought you on it.
Tooth and nail. And that was the end of that. But there's some good news. And there's a fantastic psychologist here that we have used in the past. I can't say the name.
Thank you, Jen.
Who has agreed to help them without and withhold any invoices or something unless any money comes in.
Wow.
So we're getting them help,
Yeah.
and they'll be able to. They won't have to worry about the money on that. So
And
That's
and Greg, I apologize if I did not prepare you for this question, and I apologize if I'm treading onto a little too close to your private life. But I also know that at the beginning of the trial, you lost your mom, and I know that that was a very public moment for you. You were in trial in front of Judge Carroll when you were given the news, and I just want to express the Greek Orthodox tradition has a beautiful phrase when talking about our loved ones who have passed. May their memory be eternal. I'm sorry for your mom's demise. And I when I heard about that, I thought, how in the world is he still fighting for this family despite such a personal hurt?
That's a tough one.
I applaud you, sir. I applaud you, and I'm sorry for going there, but listen. I lost my mom several years ago, and I still miss her. So I just needed to say it. One last question, sir. One last question, and I know I've got to let you go, but we've talked about Lawtube a couple of times. Do you think, and this question actually came from Michelle, do you think that Lawtube creators who watched this trial helped or hindered? And my follow-up to that would be, where do you think this evolves to?
Well, for me,
Sorry,
I came into this as a Lawtube virgin. I did not know anything about it. I'm sure I had been covered in the past in different trials. I just never had paid much attention. So this was all new to me. From a trial lawyer standpoint, and again, for all those folks out there with wonderful ideas and things, I got a lot of them, and in fact, used some of those great memes here and there. I'm sure they heard at trial. Jen watched them all for you, and it passed on to me, and so I stole some of your ideas, and I confess to that. To me, I think it's invaluable. I hope that it grows. I hope that when we have trials that can really change things, that we get even bigger crowds, and people will pass it on, and it'll grow as well. It's what my fervent prayer is, because this is like having a gigantic jury, and Americans are amazing that way. Everybody's got an opinion, and you give them the facts, and it's amazing how right they are.
Yeah.
And how fast they figure things out.
Unless they're in Reddit.
Man, I have not even come close to reading that thing.
That's been described to me. Someone in the audience described that to me as the soft white underbelly of the internet.
I keep hearing all these stories, but I think I'll refrain.
Yeah, I've never been there, and I really have no interest. But yeah, no, I just think it's fascinating how in tune so many of the trial watchers have been with this. Again, what's really striking to me, and I don't know if I have the quote. I do. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull a Greg Anderson and shuffle papers and go through my notes.
Papers, be a bumbler.
Yeah.
Go around for a while and slowly spit out a question that could be said in 3 words over 30.
So, but one of the greatest comments that I've seen since I started this channel came from an advocate who uses the handle White Dove, and this really speaks volumes about the impact of this case and the work that was done to advocate for the Kowalski family. White Dove said, "Maya became a voice for so many advocates. White Dove feels that she and her complex medical issues got heard when the jury finally heard Maya."
That is so important, and I got a comment on that. when you're ready.
Yeah, please.
Well, there were times in this trial when I was really down, and everybody saw me slowly burn the candle at both ends, and I kind of reached my breaking point around the Kathy Beatty horrific cross. But I have to say that throughout the case, I was getting, I don't know how they found my emails, let alone my text or my phone and everything, but I was getting the nicest words of encouragement and these stories from people about how it had gone so long without anybody ever expressing what had happened to them and people like that. People with CRPS, people with all kinds of different chronic pain conditions, people who had had their children taken away, people who had been to jail on false accusations of this type. And they just kept pouring in. And I have to say that it really empowered me to keep going in many instances that I was seriously, questioning what the hell are you doing here, Greg? Jesus, you've been in this thing for 5 weeks now. Thank you.
5 years and 5 weeks.
Yeah. But thank you for everybody out there. You really helped. You really did.
So you brought up the Kathy Beatty testimony. And again, bravo chick and another advocate who goes by Ash Nicole number 19.
Yeah, I know.
As you said during the trial, you weren't having your best day when you had Kathy Beatty on the stand. What would you have done differently if you had gotten 10 hours of sleep and had that Red Bull on the drive to the courthouse?
Not prepared.
Not prepared.
Not prepared. I over-prepared for Kathy Beatty. I spent 3 days, 10-hour days, 3 days. I knew everything that she had said and done. I knew it forwards and backwards. But those that know me know that's not the way my mind operates. And if you watch Nick, he's extremely methodic, and he builds on one fact, building on another fact, building on another fact. That's how he does his crosses. Me, I'm very freeform, and it drives most people freaking nuts. And you're laughing. You've seen this. And when I've had my best cross examinations are the times when I just stand up there and I start pointing out the logical inconsistencies and what the hell they're saying.
Yeah.
And if I'd had it to do over, I'd have gotten up and say, "Wow, those are some incredible stories. All of this stuff was justified, right? Right, Kat? Wow. Well, I seem to have deposed you for about 7 hours, and I never heard about any of them once. Did you forget? Did you did that slip your mind over 7 hours? Because here's your depositions. I can't find a single time you mentioned any of that."
Wow.
And that's the kind of stuff that I'm good at if I just let myself go.
Yeah.
Not worry so much, because the most powerful thing in cross-examination is you take facts the jury already knows that have been adduced at trial, which the witness probably does not know because they're sequestered, and you use that to just blow them out of the water.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm really at my best. And I knew half the freaking world was going to be watching me, and I'm really going to prepare. And I'm up late, I'm drinking coffee, and I'm doing all the things I shouldn't have done. What I should have done is just kick back the whole weekend and kind of talked about what the jury knew so far about her and the situation, had a couple beers, made 4 notes, and gone to sleep. Yeah. And then I would have ripped her a new one.
Yeah.
But the other thing was I was just so damn tired.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Nick told you or not, but when I walked in that morning, I said to him, I do not feel well at all. I do not feel good. I felt like cotton in my head, and I did not have that internal sharpness that got me where I've been as a trial lawyer. And but one of the things that saved me, probably the thing that saved me, was the jury. Those beautiful questions from the jury.
Oh,
They came in and ripped her up themselves.
yeah, yeah,
I could come in after I caught my breath and realize what a dumbass I'd been on the initial cross-examination. Way to humiliate yourself in front of 20 million people.
yeah.
But I was able to springboard off of what those questions and answers were that the jury did. And so I felt like the second part of the cross, that's where I scored any points I did score with her. And I overall, from the feedback I got, even when I was screwing everything up, she still didn't come off well. And then especially after the jury questions and my follow-up, they really hated her. So
Yeah. Yeah.
got okay.
Yeah, and I shared with you during the trial that and I mentioned this to Nick. He's very Joe Friday, and he's so young he didn't know who Joe Friday was from Dragnet, right? Just the facts man, right?
I know.
And you were Columbo, right? There's that one other. I forgot to ask you, right? And that style combination, they were so polar opposite and yet so complementary in so many ways. But I also shared with Nick that the greatest joy in my life, aside from my gregarious Greek goddess wife and my fabulous creative kids, is knowing that I will never be cross-examined by you.
At least Greg, on my good days.
Good Lord, Greg, you were you mentioned American Sniper. You were a flippin' sniper when you got on cross-examination. Your crosses were brutal. How do you do that? How do you prepare for that?
You don't really. Well, yeah, you do. The best thing you can do is think through the 4 or 5 major points that you need to rip up with this witness's testimony. And then you look at your notes and you figure out, what does the jury absolutely believe to be the truth about those 4 or 5 points?
Yeah.
Then you compare it to maybe a little bit their deposition of what they said before. Most lawyers are big into impeachment. Well, you said this in your deposition, you didn't say that here. Yeah, and that can be effective. But what I do is I think about the main point that I want them to have to either look like a complete dumbass on, or I want them to just kind of get discombobulated on. Yeah. Or sometimes I can even get them, you saw a few times, I could get them to relent and sort of give up the point.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to figure out the end point you want to be. And then you come around the back way to it by asking them questions which slowly close off the means of escape logically and factually until then you close the gate on them at that point. Yeah. And it just takes a long time to learn how to do that. Yeah. And a lot of it, like I said, is feel.
Well, that's where I think you said 137 jury trials paid off, I would imagine. So if the Kathy Beatty, tell Jen I'll let you guys go to dinner in a minute. If the Kathy Beatty day was your weakest day, other than the day of the verdict, what was your best day in court?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And
yeah, maybe Maya. I thought that Maya's direct, and then Kyle. No, that's not true, because I wasn't pleased all the way with Kyle. Not because
with Kyle's testimony,
right? Not that he made any mistakes. I was mad at myself because I felt, again, I'd prepped him too much, and I really was trying not to do that. I wanted Kyle to be Kyle. He's a very quiet kid.
Yeah.
And he's a very sensitive kid.
Yes.
I wanted that to come off with the jury, but he's also super intelligent and super disciplined and mentally. And so, I'd give him a list of, okay, Kyle, here are the points I'm trying to bring out with you. And when he recited them back, I thought it was almost a bit too mechanical, and I was really mad pat myself about. So anyway, what's a good one? I think blowing away their experts was the most fun because that's really the high point of any trial attorney's trial. And going after Elliot and
Witness Anderson.
yeah, but that was a turkey shoot. That was,
Fish in a barrel, dude. I felt so sorry for him. He was so poorly prepared, and they didn't give him nearly enough information. Yeah,
man. I'll tell you what I really enjoyed. I love Dr. Chopra. That was an examination I freaking loved.
Yeah,
he's hilarious. He's so laid back. You don't have to worry about him. He's not going to say anything stupid and blow up your case. And that was a really fun day with him. Blowing up Elliot, getting him to say all kinds of stupid stuff and exaggerate. That was fun. What was the other expert? There was the addiction expert was really.
Yeah.
That was a great time. So that was probably, for me, the peak of any trial attorney's abilities as a trial attorney is in cross-examining the opposing expert, because they're hard guns. Yeah. You can do whatever you want to them.
Yeah.
It's not like a witness. Sometimes you have to be really gentle, and if they're kids, you got to be even lighter about it and all this. But if they're a hard gun, they're paid to be there. Well, whatever you do to them, they deserve, and the jury pretty much gets that. So, but they're also very good at avoiding what they're going to say.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I've got 2 questions, and I promise only 2 more questions. This one comes from an advocate, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but it looks like Shidemio 9088. And Shidemio is the parent of a medically complex child and is wondering about the legal power of the consent to treat. Dr. Perno expressed his perspective as an ER doctor, as the VPMA, that. But would you share your attorney's opinion about how much weight does that consent to treat actually carry?
It shouldn't carry any, frankly, because it's not it's fallen out of favor. And I only know it because I started out my career doing warranty law, lemon law, and stuff like that. And so I know about it, but there's this doctrine called the adhesion doctrine. And the adhesion doctrine states that if you are faced with signing a contract, and no matter where you go to get this service or this product, it's the exact same limitations and exclusions and problems. It's called an adhesion contract, and it won't be held against you. So every time you walk into one of these hospitals, there's a big stack of papers that you're signing, right? And it's got all the HIPAA forms, it's got all this stuff. And then it's got this long, involved release and consent, which even lawyers have a hard time getting through. And to ask your average person to figure that out is stupidity. And the judges recognize that, and most every juror recognizes that. The problem is that in pretrial motions, a lot of times they'll allow the hospital to get away with some stuff they shouldn't. On the other hand, taking the hospital side of it, there should be some things that they should be able to do, and this as a physician, without having to ask, your child needs an injection. Can I give the kid an injection? Because if I don't give the kid an injection, he's going to go, that kind of thing. So there should be some. It's about informed consent. And if you're in a situation where they are taking what was a generality, where you say, generally, yes, you can treat my child, and then trying to turn that into an authorization for them to do whatever they want.
A blank check.
That should not hold water. And I feel very bad for you. Is it
Shidemio?
1988 or 88. I feel very bad for you, but there are ways to get those stricken and thrown out. We were able to do that in the Kowalski case.
Yeah. All right, last question. What's next? What's on your plate? What's ahead? I know you've got the appeals and the motions, and I know that December 15th, next Friday, is going to be a big day. What's next for Gregory Andrew Anderson? What is next for his lovely wife, the talented attorney Jennifer Anderson? What's next for the family? What's next for Anderson Glenn? Will there be other cases that you tangle with Johns Hopkins, with CPS? Just give us a glimpse. I know that right now you're just trying to catch up on your sleep and figure out which way is up.
Well, for me, I'd have to say what's next is a cocktail. But I think, all right, so this is a tough one, right? Jen wants me to never take another one of these big cases again because they just dominate. I can't imagine why she thinks that, considering we had to sell our house to afford this last one.
Right.
Here's the dilemma. Right at the part of your career when you, and you know this,
Yeah.
you know this as a professional, right at the part of your career when you finally feel like you've mastered most things and you're really able to contribute and you really can do it with a minimum amount of mistakes and really do some good, that's the time they tell you to retire. It's like an airline pilot said, airline pilots used to have to retire at 60, right?
Right.
Right about the time that they'd seen everything, done everything, and that gray hair is exactly what you wanted in the cockpit.
Yeah,
Oops,
yeah.
gotta go.
For sure. For sure.
So what would I like to do? What I'd like to do, I would like to, and what the Kowalskis want me to do, is if we were to come out fairly well on this case financially at the end, after however long it takes us to get through the process, and we had enough money to make a difference. They really want to form a foundation, which I do too.
Mm-hmm.
And the Beata Kowalski Memorial Foundation, or the Jack Kowalski and Beata Memorial Kowalski Foundation. And what needs to happen here is there needs to be a resource for people that have had the Sally Smiths of the world, the Johns Hopkins of the world, these powerful entities that seem to be able to do whatever they want. There needs to be a resource there that even if we don't take every case,
Yeah.
as long as they know that we're out there and we might take this case, or we can even write a letter and say, we're looking into this case. Why don't you treat people a little bit better? Because if you don't treat these people better, maybe we will decide to take this case. And oh, by the way, we've got X amount of millions of dollars that we can go head to whatever you throw up.
Yeah.
And if we were able to get to that, it's a public law function.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them out there, but frankly, one of the biggest problems I've got with a lot of them is that they denigrate into like a lot of things. They become political machines, and they lose track of what they're trying to do. And they're a method for the bureaucracy around them to make a lot of money, and they fail to do what the creators intended. And if I could do one thing, I feel Jen feels like this too. If we could do one thing for the people of the state and the country out there, with the talents that we've been able to amass, and we've been blessed in our lives. I've made a lot of money, but if we could find a way to form a foundation that truly did the public law work that needs to be done, and be there in these specific kinds of cases, and take the ones that are not only deserving but winnable. You don't want to take one and lose.
Right.
You want to be. And so one thing maybe I can do is look at the case and say, not only was a really terrible harm done, but we can win this one too.
Yeah.
And by doing so, we can fulfill the goal that so many people write me about, which is, maybe your verdict will scare the shit out of these people that are bugging me.
Yeah.
And the essence, I'm being good, but it's the essence of what I get over and over and over again is finally, maybe your verdict,
Yeah.
Kowalski's did, is going to
Yeah.
scare the people tormenting me into stopping tormenting me.
Well, Greg, I'm raising my hand if you're looking for a board member to support you in that effort. There again, what you just said sounds classic for the advocates that dominate this community that has sprung up over the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if you're watching YouTube, but there's nothing but orange hearts. I mean, literally hundreds of orange hearts flying by. That's fantastic.
Are you seeing this meme?
That is fantastic.
You people are so cruel.
Hold it up to the screen. What? I can't see it. What is it?
The Lawtube virgin.
Lawtube virgin. Okay.
When you said that, I knew it was going. I knew it was going.
There it is. The Lawtube virgin. You people are cruel, man. You guys, they're heartless out there.
Too rich. Well, listen, my friend, I have all these questions that I did not get to. Okay. So I'm going to let you off the hook tonight, but not much longer. We will talk again, Greg. I cannot say thank you enough. Number one, for being a guest in my first week of doing this. So thank you for trusting me. Thank you for being a part of this. Number two, thank you for allowing me to be a part of helping to take care of Maya. It was, as you know, something that I never intended to do, but it has been a life-changing experience for me, and it's helped me grow as a person. And number three, thank you for all that you did to fight for the Kowalskis, and continue to fight for the Kowalskis. You're a good man, Greg Anderson. You are a very good man, and that came through in the trial. It's come through in all of our conversations, and I am most proud that I now get to call you my friend. And my friend, thank you for everything. You done good, Greg. You done good.
You're a good friend and a good man, and I appreciate it. And I will come back to face all of my advocate friends out there with new memes and new ways. Make me laugh. Make me laugh. I love all of you. Thanks so much.
Right.
Come back anytime.
Thank you, everybody. Greg Anderson, thank you. Oh my goodness. Well, that went a lot longer than I expected it to. And thank you to Greg and to his lovely wife, Jennifer, for giving us so much time today. It's really been remarkable, So I don't know why, but I've lost the stream. Jules, if you could tell me if I'm still visible on YouTube. I'm not seeing it. There I am. I'm back. So I would like to briefly, because I have dinner plans with the lovely Triple G, but I would like to have some interaction with the audience. I do want to say thank you for all of your questions. They were obviously very helpful and very meaningful. Number two, just to cover the stuff that we didn't cover at the front. Again, I have to say this. Please hit like, please hit subscribe, please hit notify, please share this. Let's grow this community. Super excited about, we're coming up on 10,000 members. Let's get there. Let's spread the word. Let's all be advocates. Let's leave this place better than it was left to us. Huge shout out to Ian Runkle. Ian is one of the godfathers of Lawtube. He's an attorney from Canada, And yesterday he phoned me from an airport lounge in Minneapolis, St. Paul, MSP, and we talked for about an hour and a half. And he helped me with addressing some of the growing pains of how to do this and do this well. And if I can be as good as Ian one day, that would be one hell of an accomplishment. I have to tell you, I had a blast today. I had a blast on Tuesday. And again, I dedicated this channel to the advocates. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity. And again, you know, we've had some lessons learned. I think today has gone much better having 3 experienced moderators in the chat. If there are any chats, Jules, if there's anything that you know, jumped out as questions that you'd like to share, please pass them along now. We love Runkle. Everybody loves Runkle. And I do encourage you, if you're not subscribed to Runkle of the Bailey, if you're not subscribed to Law and Lumber, if you're not subscribed to Megan Fox Writer, if you're not subscribed to The Recovery Addict, if you're not subscribed to The Lawyer You Know, please go over and join them. Oh, and of course, my hero of heroes, attorney Melanie Little, who taught me a great tutorial around how to use StreamYard, which is the engine behind these videos. Dr. Joe, you are a real mensch, and so is Mr. Anderson. Much respect. Thank you for that, Jenny Peach. So, Dr. Goodhair, I keep seeing Dr. Goodhair, and I promise you, I'm not walking away from it. I embrace it. I actually am grateful for the nickname. Like I said, you got to have something going for you in life, and at least I've got good hair. I was prepared to make jokes about it today, but then we had that bombshell that Hillward Henderson filed on behalf of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital this morning. Which, honestly, if I were better at these YouTube channels already, if I had the talent that, you know, the creators I just mentioned have, I would have had memes of I would have had soundtrack to Despicable Me. You know, this is really just beyond the pale, in my opinion. It's gotten so personal and so vitriolic. And, you know, again, Greg said it beautifully. They still just don't get it. I'm going to send you your very own good hair meme. Thank you. It's your heart that's amazing. God bless you, Princess Jasmina's mommy. And, you know, you actually had a quote that I was going to read on the air. I will bring that back to the group in the next conversation. Scott, Recovery Addict, God bless you, man. I really appreciate your your support in all of this and your encouragement. Thank you for being who you are in this deceitful world. I'm half Greek. Totally agreed with your comment about my big fat Greek wedding. Thank you, Brenda B. Yeah, it's my kids had to do a intro at the beginning of the school year, and what was it? I'm a little bit Irish and a little bit Greek, and that makes me pretty unique. So you know, I'm so proud that they speak more Greek than I do. They know the Greek dancing way better than I do. I get out there and I kind of, you know, I fake it, but they actually know it. Brilliant. I miss loads in the middle as my same son came home from rugby. Nice. We are the 13th jurors. I agree with you, Holly Mack. Well done. I will be. I love the may your memory be eternal. That is a there's a lot about the Greek tradition that I really admire. You know, listen, my family emigrated from Ireland at the turn of the last century. My grandparents were not educated people. They were but they had a hell of a lot of heart. They had a hell of a lot of common sense, and they knew how to work hard. And they created a life that my parents benefited from, and they created a life for us that we've all done very well with. But one of the if the Irish never make a mistake. They never are at fault. Let me just be very clear about that, right? I'm getting stares from my Greek wife. But the Irish never make a mistake. But if we did, I would suggest to you that one of the things that we didn't do well 100 plus years ago was we didn't hold on to the Irish culture, and we assimilated too quickly. In fact, my grandfather, I thought that I was named after him because I knew him as Joseph Cunningham. And he was actually Michael Joseph Cunningham, and he changed his name from Michael to Joseph because he didn't want to be another Mick from Ireland. Well, my grandfather was 6'4", had red hair, and spoke with the heaviest brogue accent you've ever heard in your life. So he could have changed his name to Stavros, and he still would have been an Irish Mick. But I'm so glad that my kids have embraced their mom's birth heritage and have really embraced everything that's wonderful and warm about being Greek. We'll go to Temple Bar and drink. The Irish never make mistakes. They're just misunderstood. Well said, Coyote Steve. I have red hair too. Hey, so let me give you some insight. Hello from Ireland, JVA. Thank you for watching. I hope that our European friends found it a little bit more friendly to have an earlier day. I was warned in the chats that that not many people would be able to attend this episode because they would be watching trials. And I'm happy to say that we actually had more people dial in live today than we did the other night with Nick. So I'll bounce around a little bit. We'll try different times of day to because fully a quarter of the folks who are subscribed to this channel are not living in the US. And so a great thing about Google owning YouTube is that the analytics are next level. And it's fascinating how you can find out who is in your audience. Not personally, I'm just talking about generically. The majority of the advocates are women, over 90%. More than 50% are between 25 and 55. And the locations, the countries that are represented is a mini United Nations, although it's a mini United Nations that does good. Doesn't get involved in politics. I love that this community is so consistently committed to doing good. That makes my heart glad. I was talking with Jules earlier today, and I said, this is the world that I'm creating, and it's like my personal Minecraft, and I want to create this environment to be a safe place to where we can talk about hard things. But we can also hold a hand out to help others. So thank you for being a part of it. So as I was starting to say, with the viewership that we had on Tuesday night with Mr. Whitney, with the viewership that we've got today for the conversation with Mr. Anderson, it wasn't that amazing. He's such an incredible guy. I mean, I just have nothing but respect for him. We have broken through the monetization, and yes, that allows me to pay for the new camera that I just got today because Jeff Bezos still hasn't delivered the one I ordered a week and a half ago, but Best Buy had one in stock, so I was able to get that. And yes, it allows me to pay for the setup, but more importantly, it allows us to do things like super chats where a comment, if you really want it seen, we can make that happen. Now, does that mean that, if you don't super chat, your comment's not going to get read? No. And that's a lesson that I learned from attorney Melanie Little. She's very, very good about reading all of the comments, but certainly the super chats always stand out. So it'll give us an opportunity to to get your voice heard. And that's really what this case was about, and that's really what this channel is about. Monetize and donate to nonprofits. Great idea. Great idea. Let's do that. I love that Runkle has held fundraisers for nonprofits. Let's do that, right? This is a community that we can build together. Hit the like button, folks. Thank you, Nancy McCarthy. Hit the like button. We're almost to 2,000. We're almost to 10,000 subscribers. So I wouldn't mind hitting that. Dr. Do much good. Oh my God. This community just makes me laugh. Thank you so much. That's why they're called Super Chats. Love it. Well, hey, a shout out to my mods today. Thank you very much to Jules. Thank you very much to oh my God, I'm totally blanking. Lynn and Candace, who are on loan from the Melanie Little Show. Thank you so much for the work that you did. And again, thank you to this group. It doesn't look like Jules has sent me any other questions, but we were able to get several in during the during the interview with Greg, and I'm grateful. That is a habit that I hope to make a fixed part. If I do have a guest who we know in advance, then I'd like to have you submit questions. Now I will need to start putting a cutoff time because I need to assemble all of those. So maybe by noon or 9 a.m. or something like that, but we'll figure that out. So I'm not sure who my next guest is going to be. I am still hoping for Samantha Lawrence. So Greg Anderson, if you're still listening, whatever influence you have with Miss Lawrence, if you can convince her that she will be treated very, very nicely, kindly, and warmly by this group, the feedback from this group has been overwhelming. That we want to see Samantha here and celebrate with her. She passed the bar during the trial. She played a substantial role during the trial. She was my personal Sherpa. If I needed a document, I turned to her. If I needed to share something with you and Nick during the trial that I picked up while watching the live stream here from my home office, I sent it to Samantha, and she was the conduit. So Greg and Nick, if you can help me get Samantha over her shyness, and even for 30 minutes, I promise we won't keep her that long. I will tell you that as of now, I expect to be in the Sarasota County courtroom, Judge Carroll's courtroom in Sarasota County next Friday, the 15th of December. And I will plan on jumping on at least for a short report of notes that I took of what was decided, how just kind of give you an inside baseball review of what will be available on Zoom. But in talking with Scott from Recovery Addict yesterday, that Zoom feed is really for personal consumption and cannot legally be shared beyond that. I will give you my interpretation of how I think the day went next Friday. I will be back with you between now and then, but count on that next week. I do also want to tell you that some of the ideas that have come from the chat from the advocates have given me fantastic ideas for future episodes. And I can't remember who it was, but one of the advocates recommended that we interviewed Dr. Jeffrey Balser, who is the president of Vanderbilt University Medical Center. I think he'd be fabulous. I think I can't remember who recommended. The other was former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. And listen, if you can help me access any of these folks who have influence around healthcare and DCF, and by all means, I will accept your help happily. I will tell you one of the things that I would like to do, and again, I can't really, you can't approach somebody like Speaker McCarthy and say, hey, would you come on this little channel? But when you've got 20, 30, 50,000 members, 200,000 members like Law and Lumber, 200,000 members like Runkle of the Bailey, now you can get some big name people to join. So, as we grow, we'll be able to get bigger and bigger names. Not that Greg and Nick aren't big names, but I'm talking about national people. I will tell you one of the things that I'm going to work with Greg and Nick about, and I have not talked with them, so surprise. I would love to bring together, and I have to get a little bit more sophisticated in the way that I manage this, but I would love to bring together a roundtable of what? Okay, the gregarious Greek goddess said we just cleared 2,000 likes. Thank you very much. Thank you. But I would like to bring a roundtable together virtually with myself and other experts from the trial. And I would love. I've never met him. I was not in the courtroom when he testified. I would love to have Dr. Chopra on board. I would love, if he's healthy, and I pray for his health, is Dr. Eli Newberger, who I think was just a spectacular witness for Team Maya. And I would love to bring in Dr. Scott Richards, who I did get a chance to meet, and I sat with him, and he's an incredibly intelligent and compassionate man. I'd love to bring that group together and just talk about it. Talk about the trial, talk about the impact, talk about what wasn't allowed in. So I think that could be really cool. I would also like to bring together, who I've always considered my hospital quality dream team, my gurus. When I was running hospitals, clinical and patient safety and clinical quality, the three folks that I really turned to were, in no particular order, Dr. Peter Pronovost, who really kind of started the whole patient safety movement at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore after the Josie King tragedy, where an 18-month-old died because of mistakes made in the pediatric ICU. Dr. Atul Gawande, who has written, he's a Harvard-trained physician, I think he's a vascular surgeon. He's written books about checklists and just taking the lessons from what made aviation, flying planes, safer, and really applies a lot of that to how to run a hospital more safely. And then a lesser known name publicly, but an absolute pillar of quality and patient safety, is the former VP of Safety, Patient Safety at Intermountain Health in Utah, Dr. Brent James. When I was approached by HCA and given the opportunity to be a CMO, I actually reached out to Dr. James. He didn't know me from a hole in the wall. I'd never met him. We'd never talked, but he took my call. And he had, at the time, he was running an institute where he would teach his methods that had so successfully built Intermountain up to be one of the safest organizations in healthcare. He would teach that. He shared the knowledge. It's kind of like, Elon Musk doesn't keep the secrets of Tesla secret. He wants to share it. And Brent James, what a hell of a gentleman. I mean, again, didn't know me from Adam. And he offered to make a seat in the next class for me to join that class and learn about hospital quality on a large scale. I would love to bring them together. I'd also, finally, I'd love to bring together just a group of, not necessarily medical people, just people who live life the right way. And just talk about what makes you a good person. It's funny, one of our friends, It's another mixed marriage. She is Greek, he's Italian. And their son, what was Stephen, about 6, 7 years old when he gave me the nickname? He was maybe 5, Patty says. He called me Joe Good Guy. Joe Good Guy. And, as silly as that sounds, that was one of the most amazing compliments I ever got in my life. And I remember it very, very clearly, very, very vividly. And I try to live up to that. And so I'd like to bring together a group of people that just are good guys and gals doing things the right way. And I'm fortunate enough to know a bunch of them. So I'd like to bring them together. So we've got some great opportunities ahead of us. And I promise you that this will not be the same stuff that you get elsewhere, just reheated, repackaged, and rebroadcast. I want to do something different. I do want to raise the bar. And so, I'm going to call it a day so that I can have a date with my wife. Very excited about that, by the way, darling. I want us to be the best that we can be, considering we are the people on that bus stop bench, aren't we? We're not above it. We are the bus stop people. And there are some people that we've run into recently who don't think that's necessarily a good thing. But, if we live life the right way, then, it's a pretty good thing. So I'm going to wrap up. Thank you again for spectacular support. There's still over 2,000 people who have hung in and watched this for over 2 hours. We are at over 2,000 likes. We are within we're fewer than 300 new subscribers away from breaking through 10,000, which is amazing. Let's share what we've got here. Let's bring in some new folks to join the fight, and let's get to 10,000 and keep growing. Let's make an impact. Let's make a difference. But again, make sure that you're taking care of yourself before you can take care of others. Have a great evening.